Welcome everybody, it's Rev. We're doing a tier list and I've slimmed down the tier list a little bit just because I think this is where we are in Edison format. And you'll hear some of my thoughts on that moving forward. So we're doing S tier, tier 1, and then everything else is going to be cope. I don't really like these tier lists that have 5 tiers. That's just not where we are in Edison format in my opinion. I think in Edison at this point, um, you know, like I said in my last tier list, it's going to be pretty much defined by oppression and deck dev, which was correct. Um, I think oppression has lived up to the hype, and the format is largely defined by that card right now. Deck dev also has lived up to the hype, but I think it's going to get even worse. Um, Now deck dev is being cited in mirror matches for Blackwings and Vayu as just a high roll card, and I mean it's just toxic as shit. Like people complain about stuff like Dust Shoot, but the fact that it can just rip a shit ton of cards out of your hand and give you 3 turns of free knowledge, I think is undoubtedly format warping, and undoubtedly toxic as shit, and it's probably just going to make Edison a lot less fun to play. So that should lead into kind of where this tier list is going to shake up or shake out. So let's get into it. Again, I'm not rating dog shit like Flamvel or Grave Queefers. Like it's just not fucking happening. It's just if you want to have a more casual tier list, go and make one yourself. But quick draw plants are absolutely cope. Diva Heroes cope. There's just better combo decks to play. Chainburn's cope. Instant Zombie cope. I'm not even going to talk about these decks. Dragon Control is also cope. I do think Hamster Raiko Caius decks have just a base power level that's good enough, but it's definitely cope. Um, let's save some of these for later. Some of these okay, let's do frog combo. And I'm just gonna call this. Actually, no, because like there's a million frog decks. I'm not gonna rate them all, but let's just get the frog stuff out of the way. So Frog Hero, I think is tier 1. I do not think it's an S tier deck. I think this is the best frog deck, bar none. I don't think it's really even close. And I'll talk about some of the newer frog variants that are popping up. Um, I think that it just has kind of everything going for it. Like it just has the best synergies with its engine. I think the issue is sadly the side hate for it's really good. The trade-off is you just get free game ones. I mean, I don't know what the win rate is for Hero Frogs game one, but it's very, very fucking high. Um, I do think, as I said before, the lists are only going to get better. I don't think a lot of Hero Frog lists are all that good, frankly. The last tier list I said, I think the big innovation was running more discard traps, which has come true. I think the next innovation is cutting some of the fat from these lists, and running more stuff like Upstart. And I also think that this deck has more side deck options than people give it credit for. So Light and Darkness Dragon mostly is kind of like the oppression and deck dev of frogs. It's just like that gatekeepy kind of rogue fucker. So I think this deck is going to get better. But I just don't like a lot of the lists I see. Like I just don't think you need the super high ceiling bullshit that a lot of people are running. Just run like a super consistent deck that's just all engine and then 3 upstart and you're good to go. So I said I'd get frogs out of the way. I'll just say Frog Monarch is like every frog deck in existence just because there's so many. Like anything with a frog engine is going to be like at the bottom of tier 1 probably, so it'll end up probably here. Um, Frog combo or like the James Arc deck that is he wants to call Dream Frogs. Um, I think I mean I call them cope frogs. I don't think they're very good at all. Like I don't see what it solves for you. I mean it's just you lose to the stuff you lose to harder. Yeah, I mean you can definitely fuck rogue decks, but like realistically in a tournament or war league or wherever you're playing, even a locals, like when you get to a certain point, like, don't you just have to kind of beat oppression and deck dev? Like, I'd put it also at the bottom of tier one. I don't see how playing into those cards more heavily helps you. Plus, I still do think like most players have at least a crow in their side, which I mean it doesn't win you the game, of course, but it's at least decent versus the fuckboy frogs. Machine of Control. This is also cope. I don't really see the point in running this deck. It is really only just a Pot of Avarice deck. The machine cards really don't do enough, frankly. You can OTK at times, but really the correct way to build this is run 3 hamster, 3 Caius, and like charge and just hope you mill and then draw your pots and then pray. Like that's basically your game plan. And then games 2 and 3, like you don't even get to run like broken side cards. So plus like other side cards just fuck you royally. So I don't really see the point. Amaryllis, I actually think this is a very good deck. I rated this pretty highly in my last tier list. I'm going to rate it even higher here. Um, this deck does a lot of really toxic, unfair shit, and like I don't know if it was just being built a little bit differently several months ago, but it seems like the matches are getting harder and harder versus this because they play Consecrated Light inside, they play like all the like broken special summon stuff, like Titanial can fuck you as soon as turn one. Um, they'll steal your shit with Mark of the Rose. Like it's just really toxic, but it's really good. These are in order, by the way. So like this would be best, second best, um, you know, so on and so forth. So we'll see how this shakes out. Hero Beat Stun. I'm gonna rate this very lowly. I don't think Hero Beat's a good deck at all. I've said this before, but if your deck doesn't hand deliver you free wins in this format, it can't compete. And we'll just put it right next to Diva Hero Beat. Um, it also has consistency issues. So, like, if a deck is somewhat inconsistent and doesn't give you free wins, then like what's the point? Like I'd rather if I'm going to run something like slightly more inconsistent, like get a boatload of free wins with like Black Whirlwind, Dark Armed, Oppression, Deck Dev, Return from the Different Dimension, Burial. Like there's just way more like Brain Caius. Like I just don't see why you would ever run this deck. I think like in a War League environment, maybe it has some merit because like if you're playing a team that just way over represents Blackwings, then yeah, it has a good Blackwing matchup. But I mean, even in War League, you kind of just need to sack to like get a good team record. So this deck just doesn't sack enough. Blackwings or not Blackwings, Gladiator Beasts. I would actually put them like on par with Hero Beat in the Cope tier. Um, I think when I keep on calling them Blackwings, when Gladiator Beasts do their unfair thing, it really is unfair. I mean, they just like tag in and out and getting a shit ton of advantage, and like they kind of just run away with the game. And when you get behind and they have enough resources, they're just going to shut out your back row too, and like battle becomes a huge risk. So I think the issue again is really oppression. Um, but when they go off, I mean, they go off. It's pretty nuts. Blackwing Hybrid also cope. I'd actually put it behind this. I don't really see why you'd run this over just pure Blackwing or pure value. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Oh, look, looks we're nearly done with the tier list here just because a lot of this shit is not worth even talking about. Trying to see if there's anything like that we even want to talk about. Do we even talk about zombies? Like Diva Zombie, it's probably at the top of Cope just because it has really high ceiling, but it loses to stuff like Rug and Oppression and Deck Dev. Wait, Instant Zombie, it's Cope. I think it's probably towards the bottom of Cope. Diva Heroes Cope because it's just like a worse combo deck than Dragon Turbo, which I think is one of the best decks in Tier 1. I think if it's your day, just play Dragon Turbo and you'll win the tournament. It's extremely luck based. Really, the only thing that matters is your opening six and that you're competent with Dragon Turbo. I do think it does take a pretty high degree of skill to play, but the thing is, no matter how good you are, you can't really outplay your opening six. So I think, like, in a weird way, it kind of takes a lot of skill, but it also nerfs you as a player just because you're incorporating so much variance into the game that you can't really play out of situations. You kind of just, it literally is just your opening six, and that's going to determine the game and how that opening six lines up with your opponent's opening six. So, like, I don't know what's the word, like, not counterintuitively, but I guess maybe it is counterintuitive, but it's like a high skill deck, but low skill, like, conversion, I guess we'd call it. So one thing that has changed a lot since my last tier list was Lightsworn Pure. I think this is one of the best decks in the format, and I think it's probably this high. Like, I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why more people don't play this deck. I think more people don't play this deck because it takes no skill. You literally just mill cards and there's no skill expression. It's an RNG fest, but this deck has a fuck ton going for it. Namely that its Blackwing matchup is really good. Um, and I think you get to run a lot of really broken cards. Like, pretty much your whole engine is a mill engine, which is just inherently kind of broken. You get to run Honest, you get to run JD, you get to run Consecrated Light in the side, you get to run Decree. The issue again is it's very linear and there's very, very limited skill expression and player agency. So not a lot of good players want to play this just because, like, realistically, like, if you sat down with somebody that like knew how to play Yu-Gi-Oh but like hadn't played Edison format and like trained them on Lightsworn for like a week and like just did a few games with it and like taught them the basics of the format, like what some popular cards are, like you could top like an Ultimate Time Wizard like pretty fucking easily. I mean, like, if luck is going your way, like, but like someone that's really, really good at the game could practice Lightsworn for 10 months and play nothing else and then just go 0-2 drop. Like, it just, there's very, very little decision making with this deck, which is also good. Like, if you're a bad player, just run Lightsworn and like you'll probably do a lot better than you think. Machina Gadget is Cope. And is there anything else? Oh, yeah, I think Christie's Horn's Mega Cope. I don't think this deck is good. I know I'm going to catch a lot of hate for saying Pure Light Sworn is better than Christie's Horn, but I don't see why you'd play this. Like, it's just too bricky. You don't need the extra ceiling. You don't need to shut your opponent out of the game. What you need to do is sack them, and you need to summon shit quickly and kill them. And you need to drop Consecrated Light, which is a normal summon. You don't need to be doing all this dumb shit that Christie's Horn does. I just don't think it's a good deck. Um, let's see. Yeah, last two. Should be no surprise. These two, in no particular order, are at the top of the meta. I think too many people are putting Frog Hero up here. I do not agree with that at all. I think I've seen some people also putting like these four at the top. I wholeheartedly disagree. I think the two best decks are 100% these two, and I'm not really that skeptical of my own opinion, or I don't doubt it that much. Um, One thing I will say is that people seem to want to put Blackwing like way up here and like say it's almost like in a tier of its own. I really, really disagree with that. I don't think Blackwing is better than Vayu at all, and I don't think Vayu is much better than Blackwing. I think they're neck and neck. Um, and I really don't think at any point, no matter like what type of deck building innovation there is, that Blackwing is going to be in a tier of its own. I think Blackwing has a lot of issues actually, and I think it has a lot of fragility in its game plan. I do think though that it's very rewarding of luck. So if you're running hot and you're drawing Whirlwind and you're winning RPS, that Blackwing rewards that a lot more than plenty of other decks. I think Vayu Turbo does the same exact thing. What they do have in common though is deck dev and oppression access. and not just the oppression and deck dev access, but really really easy deck dev access, which I think is just going to define the format moving forward. And I think it's a very very toxic card. So we'll see how this shapes up. I'm going to do a quick run through on within the tiers. So again, I'd put these like right on top of each other. I don't think one's better than the other. I do think all of these decks are definitively worse than this. I do think the Combo Frog deck is really cool and is really good into Rogue. I think this is better than Dragon Turbo. I think Lightsworn is severely underplayed. Amaryllis is a good deck. It's very toxic, which is necessary in Edison format. Fuckboy Frogs are very powerful, but lose too hard to certain stuff. Just any frog variant's automatically tier 1. Here things get a little bit murkier. In the ordering within this, I'm really not sure in the cope category. I think they're all equally as cope, quite frankly. Like, I don't. Maybe the Hero Beat stuff is like. Yeah, Hero Beat's probably worse than Diva Zombie. It's probably like on par with a lot of the Gladiator Beast stuff. So, yeah, that's it.